well-known Mayan symbols, like this. It's not part of a rocket, but the face of the Mayan earth god. And these South American stones with supposedly ancient carvings of primitive people gazing at the stars through telescopes, they were exposed by a BBC documentary as fakes, all made by this clever farmer. But that hasn't stopped Eric's runaway success. His 29 books have sold 63 million copies and been translated into 32 languages. Brian Appleyard is a leading British author who's written on the public's fascination with UFOs. He thinks von Daniken's success is down to people's growing distrust of experts, which leads to a taste for conspiracy theories.
Now, people by the 60s and 70s, and because of the Cold War, people were paranoid, convinced that governments were lying to them, convinced that something was concealed, and convinced that the world was not as we were told it was. So people were ripe for a story. They were ready to hear a story about extraordinary things.
The von Daniken phenomenon seems unstoppable. He makes so much money from his books, he recently opened his very own theme park, which celebrates his unorthodox beliefs. Complete with reconstructions of some of the ancient monuments.
You see great things like the desert of Nazca in Peru, like Stonehenge. It's a laser show, by the way.
In a breathtaking laser show, the visitor experiences the spectacular sight of Stonehenge.
There's even a guided tour which aims to answer all those big questions you've been dying to have answered.
Did the mythical continent of Mu ever exist? What is the secret of the underwater structures off the Japanese island of Yonaguni?
Von Daniken's success has also inspired a whole new generation of authors, including the likes of New Age writer David Hatcher Childress.
People are attracted to Eric's theories, I think, because there are genuinely unexplained mysteries of the past. And we really don't have all of the answers to why mankind, supposedly a primitive mankind, would go through the tremendous effort to build many of these giant monuments.
Eric von Daniken's definitely been one of the pivotal people that I've looked to grab onto the coattails of his information and really start to look at this information in a new light.
But these new believers have a battle on their hands. Scientists don't care whether the mythical continent of Mu ever existed. If aliens visited the Earth, scientists want proof.
I think the first thing I would say about whether the knowledge to build pyramids was given to the Egyptians by extraterrestrials is simply, where's the evidence? If you think about man's fairly limited extraterrestrial experience of going to the moon, look at the amount of space junk which has been left around simply by going there and coming back. Wouldn't you have thought that if spacemen had been to Egypt and had been teaching the people how to do these things, there'd be at least the odds of leftover broken plastic somewhere?
The believers, though, say they've found some evidence, although whether it's very convincing is a whole different question. According to them, aliens did leave some space-age technology behind. This 2,000-year-old pottery jar, for example. It was discovered in Baghdad in 1938. Inside it were copper and iron rods, similar to a modern battery. Back in California, Jason Martell has built his very own replica.
What we're looking at basically is just a simple clay pot formed with the clay found naturally in that region, and then using a simple copper lining and a iron metal rod down the center. This was back in their days used either a rubber or an asphalt stopper.
Jason fills the pot with an acid solution, vinegar, and now he's expecting something spectacular to happen.
All right, the moment of truth. Getting some little numbers here. See that spike? It's going off the chart here now. Look, there we go. See that? Generating 4 volts right there. What we attribute to ancient man, they deserve a lot more credit than we're giving them, because obviously we can test the devices with our understandings of technology and get a reading. Here we are, 4 volts right there from the battery. So obviously they were able to make this happen. What were they using it for? Very possibly electricity.
Now, what ancient Iraqis might have done with the 4 volts of electricity, nobody's sure. As for aliens, why would they need an old clay pot when they can zoom through interstellar space?
If making a little pot, filling it with vinegar and sticking a bit of copper in it, and then seeing that there's some bubbles appear, is space age technology, fine.
Back at Eric's theme park, the Baghdad battery is given pride of place, alongside an object based on an Egyptian drawing which he claims was an electric light bulb. The Egyptologists, though, say it's a well-known symbol and is actually just a snake inside a flower. The spoil sports. But Eric is convinced the ancient Egyptians used electricity to light up the dark passages in their pyramids. Someone must have nicked all the wires. Now, you may have been thinking that aliens could have brought us something more useful than the odd light bulb. Well, the same thought occurred to this man. He believes they brought the technology to tap into a cosmic energy source, which they then linked to all the ancient monuments on the Earth. Funny, he doesn't look crackers. One of the things that makes human beings sort of special is that we live in big, sophisticated societies full of big, complex buildings. It's called civilization. Which is why so many people positively hate the idea that the whole thing might have been kick-started by aliens. At the heart of the theory is the suggestion that extraterrestrials built the very first big buildings of all back in the ancient past. Which is all very well and good, but the believers have had a hard time explaining why the aliens did all this. Were they just trying to show off? Not according to this man. Here he is, hiding in Stonehenge. Now, according to the scientists, Stonehenge was built in 3000 BC. The 5-ton stones were dragged 170 miles by ancient British people to celebrate the sun, it's thought. Which is all very interesting. But not quite interesting enough for David Hatcher-Childress. He says Stonehenge might instead have been a fuel stop for ancient aliens. He came up with his interesting theory after he discovered what he says are mysterious energy lines. He believes the Earth is covered with these invisible lines in a strange network. If it all sounds a little unlikely, it has at least got a cool-sounding name: the World Energy Grid.
The world grid is an intelligent geometric pattern of the Earth and its energies. A wave of the sunlight hits the Earth and wraps the Earth like a ball of string of energy, creating this energy grid.
As you might have guessed, no scientist believes in this grid or the energy that it apparently contains. But according to Hatcher-Childress, that's just because they're too sceptical for their own good. The aliens, though, knew about the energy grid and tapped into it. How? By building ancient monuments on key intersections of the grid, obviously.
By placing megalithic monuments along this grid, UFOs can then take energy off of this energy grid, and by going to certain power points